Welcome everyone, I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a Taino airwalk. I own a school called the Ivy League Psychic Academy. Today's class is finding the one. Now, finding the one, finding your right romantic partner, is a shortened, smaller version of an official class that's up on the Ivy League website called Reaching the One. That's a 2-hour-long training full of exercises and in-depth detail. So check that out if you enjoy what you hear tonight and want to learn more. In regards to finding the one, this is probably the most common question I get asked by clients, and I find that my answer is often a bit disappointing for them. We all want to have free will. We know that we want to be free, to make our own choices, and that freedom is truth. But when the universe gives you a big plate of free will instead of something very specific, very directive, very destiny charted, we're disappointed with it. It's like, is that all there is? And often in love, it ends up being that type of scenario. I am very honest about how relationships operate, and I'm very realistic about what we can do and what and who would be best for us to get engaged in. And so we're going to look at that today. But the reality is, looking at a little myth versus truth here, that there is no such thing as the one. The universe has not set up for you one specific individual to be with. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, that busts the myth of twin flames. There's no such thing as a twin flame. And when people talk about twin flames, I think it's silly, especially if they're a reader or they're a healer, because it is this fictitious fairy tale concept that has no validity, no proof at all. And it's something that I wonder if that person just wants for themselves. Maybe that reader or healer desperately needs some healing in their love life. Or maybe they're doing it and it's not so funny to get money off of the client, because people are reaching for that apple. They are really desperately in search of that twin flame, and it does not exist. It's also toxic. It feeds the patriarchy. It feeds this concept that we're not whole individuals unless we find and latch on to somebody else. None of this is real. None of this happens. No one's coming to rescue you. It doesn't work that way. And you want to be very careful where twin flames are concerned and people who promote twin flame ideas. But it's also slightly under that in toxicity is this desire to find the one, this concept that there is, in fact, a right person to be with, to commit to marry, and that we don't have the real deal until we find that one. And that's really misconstruing what we did when we signed our life contract and came to Earth. We agreed to work with certain people. So we have karmic contracts. We have soulmate contracts, for sure. And then we have contracts with other people that aren't necessarily on that big of a level. There aren't cords. They are just relationships that will teach us lessons or be really helpful in our growth. And we want to be realistic that in regards to lovers, romantic partners, the best thing to do is to look at your soulmate options. I always say we get about 5 to 6 different soulmate options over the course of our entire lives. Not all of them will be romantic partners, but some of them will be. And what I would recommend you do is to pick that soulmate. If you want a steady, long-term relationship or marriage, you're going to want to pick the soulmate that can function with you in the day-to-day. So what do I really mean by that? I mean that when a soulmate shows up, it's dynamic, it's passionate, everything's on fire. It is a magical occurrence. And you do run the risk of basically taking everyone else that you've ever been with or anyone else that you will ever be with and comparing them back to that soulmate connection. And that can really cost us a lot. We have to be careful. Just because it's a soulmate connection doesn't mean that it's the best thing for you. It doesn't mean that it's healthy. It doesn't mean that it's growing. And it doesn't mean that it's functioning in the day-to-day at all. So what I mean by functioning in the day-to-day is that you guys can work as a team. Since soulmate contracts are supposed to be work contracts, it requires teamwork. When you do find one of those soulmates that wants to help you grow, wants to get tasks done, understands how to be supportive, understands that they're responsible for their own self-care, their own well-being, they hold themselves accountable, they take responsibility for things in life. When we have two people who could do this, we have a soulmate connection that can possibly make it in the long term. That doesn't mean that that contract may not have an ending to it. It may be on a deadline and a timeline. All relationships tend to have that, but it has the best likelihood. So a lot of people feel guilty. They feel like they found this a couple times. Great, then you probably did. Nothing to feel bad about. A lot of people feel to someone they're with, and then a soulmate comes along and they want to run off and go be with that person instead because it's more dynamic. Be careful. It doesn't necessarily make it one that can last for a long time, even though it has that really powerful addictive feeling and that high vibrational energy to it. We also want to be realistic that when we're talking about soulmate connections, we're talking about cords. So cords are what bind us. And I talk about that more in my relationships boundaries cord cutting class. I have a free mini class here on YouTube. Go into the playlist called Twin Flames versus Soulmates, Myth versus Truth, where I broke down what actually happens with the soulmate and these cords, as well as karmic contracts. One of the things that we want to be careful with is we can get involved with people romantically and feel that it's incredibly dynamic and wild. You can't compare it to anything else, but it's actually about lessons. It's a karmic bond, and that is a very, very different thing. Cords are connected to it, which means you are going to have past life history, but we want to be mindful there. A lot of people choose the one based on that feeling, and it's actually karmic contract, karmic debt, and it doesn't end well. So we need to be careful, not rush into things. Another myth versus truth is that we want to understand that this isn't necessarily something that you have to earn. There's a lot of talk that you won't have that person, you can't grab that apple, you can't get that thing until you've done all the work and you have really become such an enlightened being that you deserve it. It doesn't really work that way. It's good to evolve. You should be working on your growth at all times. But the reality is that we sign this life contract before we come to Earth. And we do have a certain amount of people that we'll be working with, and those things are on deadline. So they will come through. It is destiny charted, which means it can't be manipulated, meaning even if you do something right, it doesn't necessarily bring it in any faster. It will happen on its own. So don't feel, too, like it's something that you have to achieve, and don't buy into a system. Also, from healers and readers, be careful that there's something else you have to do to get it to come to you. It's going to happen. However, you is going to make it that when this person crosses your path, you're ready to fully receive this individual and work with this individual so that we can maximize the prosperity between us. It is important, and we will be talking about that today. All right, I want to break down a couple tips here from 10 to 1 things that you can do to find that one person for yourself. Number 10, we need to be very careful that we're not picking a partner based on a trauma bond, based on some history that we have from our childhood or past life history where maybe we were abused or neglected by our parents. We had an upsetting childhood. We want to make sure that we're not picking somebody who has the same level of trauma as us so that they feel familiar. Even if it is dysfunctional, it can feel very comfortable. Even if it is very toxic, it can feel familiar and safe. And we want to really analyze too whether or not somebody is giving to us, like a parent taking us in, like someone they have to fix or care for in a codependent way, because they're also technically dealing with some type of trauma or loss in their development. So we often see people take on love partners because they need to fix something within themselves or heal. And it's not going to work in the day-to-day functioning. No one should be the parent. We should have two partners, and it shouldn't be based on trauma and trauma reactions. That can look a lot like soulmate connection. I also want to say that empaths, especially at the 3rd and the 4th levels, will attract, research shows, narcissists and sociopaths more than any other group of people. And in the empathic awareness class, I break this down in some great detail. As an empath, you have to be careful, remembering that you don't attract to you what you are. Law of attraction says, well, whoever you're attracting, that must be who you are. That's not, especially with empaths. Empaths attract what is desperately needed, what the other person desperately wants, what the other person maybe wants to destroy because they see something light and amazing and helpful and positive, and they want to come and snuff out that light. It's not the same as a trauma bond, but it is a high-risk area, and I do see a ton of my clients dealing with this problem, and I've had to battle it myself as an empath. Always attracting narcissists and sociopaths. Guard your energy and be mindful, especially when people are too helpful or overly engaging, and then you see the abuse process, ghosting and things like this throughout. Don't forget too that when someone shows up and they are just knowing you top to bottom, to understand all your favorites are their favorites. Oh my God, I want to travel there too. We want the same things in life. Sometimes it seems a little too good to be true because they were studying you and watching you. This happens all the time. And if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So make sure they're not just mimicking a soulmate bond. Number 9. Again, make sure it's not a karmic bond. I mentioned this earlier a little bit, meaning that there is a karmic contract. There is some kind of debt owed. Now, when we're talking about debt owed, it's very likely that in a previous life, this person stole from you or possibly even murdered you, possibly did some type of significant damage that you're still in the process of healing from, and they can be responsible to come back and make up for what they did. But it doesn't always mean that they're doing it. Karmic bonds can be very toxic because we could see the same toxic individual reborn, put on your path to pay you back, and now you're sort of stuck in this cycle with them. These would also be obsessive. This person may stalk. This person may constantly pop in and out of your life and you don't understand why. They could be full of lessons, even though there seems to be a comfort level there or familiarity. Every time you're dealing with this person, it's like you get hit with one negative side effect or another, and it causes you to learn a lot of lessons. So that could be another big contract, is your growth. You learning something from it and knowing when to let it go. Boundaries, boundaries. Number 8, make sure that the partner you're choosing isn't dead weight. Now that seems obvious, but what a lot of people do is they come into a relationship with an agenda. They want to get married at a certain point. They want to have kids. They want the white picket fence. There's an agenda, any kind of agenda. They desperately need company. They can't make it in life on their own. Who knows? There's an agenda. When we have an agenda, we are willing to overlook flaws in the other person, and we're willing to speed things up so that we don't give the appropriate amount of time for the other person's true colors to come out. When we rush relationships and we compromise, what we often find is that there's a partner in the relationship that is dead weight. They not only drain your happiness, your joy, but they could be creating some type of mental illness for you, even physical problems. Your energy can be so drained from you on a daily basis that you're beyond exhausted and miserable, and you could find yourself in a vicious cycle where you can't get out. So do not rush, and make sure you're not marrying, taking someone on who's going to drag everybody else down or become like an additional child, someone that you have to raise up. What we want to be seeing with people is that they have a growth mentality. And I don't have enough clients that stop to ask this question. This is always a concern and something I try to bring up. Does this person show growth? If they had a traumatic childhood, did they ever get therapy? Did they ever try to work on themselves? Have they even identified that? Has this person changed in the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Have they shown any ability in the relationship to take what wasn't working and to make it work, to put in effort? If you don't have some signs of growth from this individual, this is not it, because them latching onto you is only going to take you down. It's not going to help them grow or become better than what they are. Okay, number 7, be sure that the person you're getting ready to commit to, or the one that you're looking for, doesn't have a compensation problem. We have many, many women who are addicted to their sons. It's Braylon's mommy, and it's Braden's mom, and Kaylee's mom, Caleb's mom. They're all these women. We have generations of women who are addicted to their sons because their husbands do not supply them with the support that they need. The men in their lives have never given them that type of energy back. And so they make the son the prince and the king. And we rarely see this with their daughters. You may not even know they have daughters. But when you get involved with someone like this, you're basically finding someone who is going to overcompensate for this loss. And we need to be very careful in the way that we don't try to make our lovers, or you'll sometimes see this with dads, because maybe a father couldn't be a supportive partner for his wife, so he sort of latches onto the daughter and she becomes like a little wifey to him. It's like emotional molestation almost. Okay, in some cases I think it really is, and today we see a lot of this. So keep an eye on the parents of whoever you're dating. See what their relationship looks like, and keep an eye on the person you're dating and what their relationship is to their mother and their father. Look at the family dynamics before you get in bed with a situation like this. Number 6, do check your astrology, your numerology, and any kind of past life history you may have with this person. You don't know how to look at past life history? I do these readings, but you can also talk to your Akashic record guide. Your Akashic record guide holds all of your past life history, and anytime you meet someone new, you can go to your Akashic and say, can you show me if we have any history? If so, what were we? What did we do? Was it positive? Was it negative? This can really help to clear up whether or not it's a karmic bond, it's a soulmate connection, or it's just a nice connection. It could also be problematic and come with a lot of red flags that you would have overlooked. When we look at our numerology, a numerology chart, Danny Johnson, our numerologist, does those. Christina Del Rey, our astrologer, does synergy charts, and I do life contract readings where I can answer this for you. We see that in our numerology, we'll have number patterns and numbers that match up. We can also see things like gaps in numbers where the other person fills it in really nicely. And when we look at astrology, Vedic or Western, you should see some synergy there. That doesn't always mean that there are chords, that it's soulmate or karmic. It could just mean that you have nice synergy with the planets in the houses, and that can make for a really highly functioning relationship. So there is more out there than just that soulmate bond, and it really shouldn't be overlooked. But you should know also if there is past life history, what it entails, and a good synergy chart can show you that. But you also want to look for North Node connection. So we talk about past life, we talk about South Node, we're talking about North Node, we're talking about work that you have to do together in the future, in this life, maybe even in future lives together. So that North Node, for me, if I know that's a soulmate connection, I have South Node and North Node, that could be one I can work with. That may be someone that I choose to keep around. But without these charts, it can get really tricky to know. Number 5, let's look at that North Node connection. Make sure you have it with this person. And if it's not going to come up in the astrology, it should at least show that you two can work together as a team. And this just really breaks down to a lot of common sense in regards to what our goals are. However, a lot of people like to talk about their goals, but you don't see that reflected in their character. You don't see that reflected in their personality. You don't see it reflected in their daily habits. So sometimes it makes you wonder, how do they ever think they're going to get there? You can't achieve something just because you want it, you will it, you want to have it for yourself. There has to be something backing that. And you should be able to tell with people whether or not they've been able to actually achieve any goals in their life, create something that they've wanted to have, and where that's going. I would not commit to someone without knowing that we can build something and go somewhere greater. Watch that North Node. Number 4, what you should do before you find the right person, if you think you already have and you're a little behind on this, do it immediately. Cleanse out the old energy from your previous relationships, especially anything that was toxic in any way. We often carry somebody else in our energy field from the past, and it makes it very difficult to move on with anyone new. It's almost like we're having a threesome scenario. Sometimes it's even more people than that. And that's a sign that you haven't gotten rid of the energy from this other individual. It's not always negative. Sometimes it's that you wish you had this person back. Maybe they moved on to somebody else. Maybe you're comparing everyone who comes in back to this person. That's not going to work well for you either. And it's not going to work for anyone who is trying to dedicate their life to you and give authentically. You have to clear that energy out. If you have this issue, or you feel that you're somehow still addicted to somebody else, or if they invade your energy regularly and you don't want it, especially in your dream state, almost like haunting you, you're going to want to check out Relationships, Boundaries, and Cord Cutting class up on the website. Cut those cords. Number 3, in the meantime, while you're waiting for that perfect person, work on you. Focus on you. Even if you do think maybe you found that perfect love partner, don't make it all about them. Don't lose yourself to them. Don't forget how to think and feel and have a life. Work on you. Pay attention to what you're here on earth to do. If you don't understand your life calling, look at your life contract. Look at your bigger purpose. We feel the best in life when we are doing what we came to earth to do, when we are passionate about our work and the way we're spending our time, and this radiates out to the world around us. So it doesn't just attract prosperity, like financially or through resources or networking or good luck. It also attracts the right people to us. So the more you focus on loving you and living your life authentically, the easier this part of the process will be. Number 2, understand your worth. Understand that you are deserving of getting a certain kind of person, that you love yourself never to settle. And in conjunction with that, understand your needs and any areas in your life where you may be needy, and work on that so that you can honestly say, I can supply my own needs. I can get my needs met in other ways. I don't need a partner to come in and supply me with everything: emotional support, physical support, sexual support, mental support, financial support. When you're needing a lot from people around you, it's a repellent. It's going to take a long time to either attract the right person, or it's going to be completely overlooked, because typically what we attract when we're needy are people who want to take advantage of that somehow. So you're going to get yourself in a mess with abusive or neglectful partners. So understand what it is that you need. Find other ways to get those needs met so that you could say, you know what? I don't need anything from anybody. When I get in a relationship with somebody, it's all about what I can bring to the table. And I expect that to come from the other person as well. That's how we have a nice mutual partnership. Number 1 tip that I have for you guys today is to get out a piece of paper and a pen and write down 15 things that you want to attract to you in a love partner. If this person lives overseas, they will be finding their way to you. If you are specific on random little details, like if my tire blows out on the side of the road in the middle of the night, this person doesn't just send AAA, they drive, no matter how far it is, to come and meet me to make sure I'm okay. Whatever it is, get specific. And on this list of 15 things that you are claiming in a partner, you want to make sure that you've eliminated anything negative. So if you have negative talk, especially even in your mind, no, I don't want that. Well, I never want another cheater. Well, I don't trust anybody. Well, I don't want to be bothered with a man. They just steal my energy. No, I don't. Get rid of all that junk. Leave it there in the past. Bury it and take what it is that you do know you want and you are deserving of. Write it down, fold it up into an envelope, put it away for 6 months to a year. And if they haven't arrived by then, take it out and read it and remind yourself of it and keep waiting. Having clients do it, it works like a charm. It's really just law of attraction and manifestation. But you have to be careful what you ask for. You want to do it right, and you want to make sure you're doing all these other things in the meantime. It's not a substitute for anything else. Yes, and I have a class up on the website called Karma, Contracts, and Past Lives that would help you with this. The one that goes in conjunction is Relationships, Boundaries, and Cord Cutting, because karmic contracts are often toxic, not always, but often. And one of the things that can happen is that you feel, again, drawn to that person because there is past life history. So there could be a lot of familiarity, and we're confusing that for being something good and positive. The other thing that can happen with a karmic contract is that you meet the person and you feel like you can't stand them. You just want to punch them in the throat and they didn't even do anything wrong. You don't understand why you're repelled by this person. That could be because of what they did in the past. So we can have some very dynamic reactions in regards to free will. Where our free will lies is in how we react to it. Do we learn the lessons? Do we set boundaries? Do we get entangled with this person and make foolish mistakes? And one of the things we always have to remember is that it is our choice to sign off on a contract, cut cords wherever we need to, and sign on to a new contract to protect ourselves. So you absolutely have free will, even in that. It doesn't matter. If the one you're supposed to be with lives far away, it's not really going to matter, because in the contract that you signed onto before you came to Earth, you already figured all that out. So there's going to be some kind of a work connection, a travel, something could happen, and the person has to, maybe even, heaven forbid, tragedy often brings soulmates together. Cox years before a pivotal point often brings soulmates together. So we see a million reasons why soulmates would be crossing. I met Polly, that's a great example. We were both off Tinder, heard that we should get on, uploaded it, and within 24 hours of uploading it, even though neither one of us wanted it, we listened to our intuition, uploaded it, and the only reason I met him was because he was working in town. And so anyone within, I think it's like a 10-mile radius or a 1-hour radius, well, he's not from here at all. So that would have never happened, but he was traveling through for work, and we just happened to ding at exactly the right point. We talked the next morning, and we shut down those accounts. So it will happen exactly the way that it's supposed to happen, and it's not for you to worry about or dictate. I would also say, Jan, this is a great question. Never settle for someone that's just because they're local. We do meet all of our soulmates. However, I really do believe that sometimes people don't make the best decisions and that death is highly negotiable. And so we can see all these different death points. Sometimes when we look at astrology, and we know that while death is negotiable, at some point it's going to happen. And I do sometimes see that soulmates pass away before the real meeting can happen, or the meeting ends up being really, really brief, and that can feel like a real loss and heartache. But even if that were to occur, it doesn't mean the work ends. They will work with you from the other side, and it will continue and probably carry on into future lives together. So do you meet everyone? Yes. And if you are married or committed, it doesn't mean that the next soulmate that you were meant to meet will not cross your path because of that. They're still coming. And so you have to be prepared to deal with that ethically, because you're going to feel like you want to leave the person you're with and run over to this other person. And you need to still be moral and ethical on how you handle that. I would say that it's not really necessary. I find that a lot of people come with work contracts. I'm one of them. So while I don't really make it a top priority. I could take it, I could leave it. I find that a lot of my clients come with work contracts and they feel the same way, that they don't really care. They have trouble making a lover a priority, and they're definitely not going to sacrifice their work or any of their life plans for someone else. I find that these people are also really authentic in relationships. It can really give really freely because they're better balanced than a lot of people who need or want romantic partnerships a lot. And so I think that there are perks to not having them. I think, though, that societal standards will certainly pressure you into thinking you want it or thinking you need it. What I would start with, if I were you, is looking really at how you feel about romantic partnerships. Do you not have them because it's not a big priority? And that's okay. It's not part of your life's work. It's not really necessary. Do you not have them because you're blocked off to them? Is there some kind of trauma that needs to be dealt with? If so, deal with that. But it's really important to just live authentically and understand that as long as you're healing and growing and coming from that true energy, that you're going to attract everyone you're supposed to. And don't forget that soulmates are not always necessarily romantic partners. So just because you're not getting involved romantically with people doesn't mean you're not working with your soul tribe. That's probably not true. That I don't see. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone come to Earth and not have any soulmate ever cross their path. I think that maybe you're feeling that romantically, but I would say that if you're feeling that with everybody, like you have never ever met a soulmate and you're up there in age, you're maybe in your 70s or 80s tuning in, I would think that that's odd and that you've been doing something to block that or to negate it. However, if you're young, it's certainly possible you haven't yet. That's fairly normal. I do see a lot of people not meet their first one until they're around 25, 27. So that can happen. But if I'll say to you what I said to the last person who said, what can I do? I've never had a romantic partnership. I think it's important to look at why that might be. Do you have any blocks in relationships in general? And one of the ways that we can all make sure that we are ready for members of our soul tribe is to keep developing, making sure that we're giving out to others around us. So keep your head set and it'll happen. We all came here to work, so we all have work partners. I love that. But listen, I mean, that's why too, numerology, there's so much truth in this because that's just how Spirit showed me to do it. And everything on TikTok and YouTube and everywhere else is like, don't go over 6 things. It's 5 things, it's 6 things. Spirit was like, nope, it's 15 things that you're supposed to do. And it really does work. And I think the reason Spirit sets it up that way is because it really gets you thinking. We can sort of sloppily put down 5 things or 8 things, but by 15, you're already tapping into that person's energy in a way and pulling them in. Well, I think there's a huge difference between a karmic contract and a soulmate contract. And I think that we can have some mixing there, meaning that karmic lessons can be learned with our soulmates. I think in a way, yes. And that would not necessarily mean that it isn't going to be unpleasant. Just because you're learning karmic lessons with a soulmate doesn't mean it can't be toxic or destructive. It can be very, very hard. So we don't want to take a soulmate and put them up on a pedestal. And we don't want to take a karmic lesson and necessarily just decide that it's going to destroy everything. It's all about free will. It's all about people being willing to be honest, correct their wrongs, grow, and learn and work together as a team. So yeah, it can happen. And I do find that most of the soulmates that are worth sticking with do put you through a lot of karmic lessons, or they at least help you to understand what your karmic lessons are. So if you have things that you need to work on, a supportive soulmate can be there like a mirror for you. Yes, a pet can be a soulmate. Absolutely. I have found that sometimes other soulmates, whether it be from past lives or earlier in your life, if they did pass away, they could actually reincarnate as a pet. So we not only see pets being soulmates, we see old soulmates reincarnating as new ones. Please do give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you enjoy what you heard here tonight. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Polly.
Very welcome.
Thanks, Spirit. Have a good night.